Please stand by. Your conference will begin momentarily. Thank you for your patience. Your conference will begin momentarily. This conference is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. You will be able to ask a question at the question and answer portion. If you would like to ask a question, please press star 1. Please stand by. Your conference will begin momentarily.
Hello, and welcome to today's Media Telecom. This is an informational call to provide logistical details for the events that media can attend surrounding NASA's OSIRIS-REx sample return this fall. I'm Erin Morton with NASA's Office of Communications. We will begin with some remarks and then leave time for questions. On the line with me today, we have Patrick Lynch of NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center, Scott Dixon of the U.S. Army's Dugway Proving Ground in Utah, Shaneequa Vereen of NASA's Johnson Space Center, and Micah Garabino of Hill Air Force Base, also in Utah. They are all here either as speakers or to answer questions when we get to the Q&A portion of the call. If you are a member of the media on our telecom lines and would like to ask a question, please press star 1 to be put in the queue. So this fall, NASA's first asteroid sample return mission will complete its 7-year journey to asteroid Bennu and back. The spacecraft will be returning to Earth on September 24th to jettison its sample capsule, the only part of the spacecraft to re-enter Earth's atmosphere, which will land under parachute at the Department of Defense's Utah Test and Training Range, about 80 miles southwest of Salt Lake City, Utah. Once it's on the ground, mission crews will recover the capsule and bring it to a clean room at the U.S. Army's Dugway Proving Ground, located within the Utah Test and Training Range. There, the team will prepare it for transfer, and the next day, September 25th, the capsule is scheduled to be flown to NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, where a special facility has been built to house and curate the Bennu samples. Over the next few weeks, the capsule and its component parts will be carefully opened, and the asteroid material inside will be removed to undergo initial curation. At that point, NASA will reveal the Bennu sample to the world at an event at Johnson Space Center. So to assist members of the media covering OSIRIS-REx's sample return and reveal, NASA has created a number of opportunities at the Utah Test and Training Range, at NASA's Johnson Space Center, and at Lockheed Martin's facilities in Littleton, Colorado, where the spacecraft is being operated. These events include access to mission dress rehearsals at the range and at Lockheed Martin in the months leading up to the return, as well as access to the sample return event itself at the Utah Test and Training Range, and events at Johnson Space Center for the sample reveal. As we proceed through this schedule of activities, you may also follow along in the media advisory for this telecon, which lists the major events. Please note that we will also issue individual advisories throughout the summer and fall for these events as they occur. And so I will now turn the floor over to my communications colleagues to provide details on these media events and on the logistical requirements for attendance. First up is Patrick Lynch from NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center. Patrick?
Thanks, Erin, and hello, everyone. Like Erin said, I'm Patrick Lynch. I'm the Deputy Chief of the Office of Communications at Goddard. Goddard, of course, has had the mission management responsibilities for OSIRIS-REx going back many years ago to the beginning. So very much tied up in the planning and the project management of this. As Erin also said, we're giving a preview of the events that are coming up this summer and just an overview of it. This is a remote location and a non-NASA facility, and so in many ways, if you all cover NASA regularly, you may be familiar with sort of the pattern of events as we get closer, but again, it is different. And so we want to make sure you all know what to expect as you hopefully make plans to cover this historic event. So I'm going to walk through in primarily the events in Utah, and then others can chime in after that. But just to walk through again, as Erin said, the things in the advisory. This starts in July on the 20th, where there will be a media day. And as it's sort of hinted here in the advisory, this is somewhat smaller scale. We're really kind of thinking that it might be of interest for the local Salt Lake City area media and others nearby, although it is open to everyone. So there will be an opportunity to see the clean room facilities that are being constructed and a hangar there on site, and see one of the practice capsules and talk to members of the recovery team. So again, open to everyone, but in our mind, that really is a little bit of a oriented toward local media. Then in August, late August, is really much more of what we were considering a primary media day prior to the event itself. This is built around the mission's drop test rehearsal, which will happen out on the range in the landing ellipse, dropping the test capsule from about 5,000 feet, and it's an opportunity to go through obviously the timeline of the day for the mission team, as well as test their tracking cameras and radars and recovery operations. The intent, I want to say here, is that media would be able to film and photograph the drop test out on the range. We are putting a little bit of an asterisk next to that. Weather could derail that, despite the fact that we are in the high desert out there, that they do get significant rains, which can affect just ability to get out there. And also operations on the range itself, despite the fact that we're out there, there are other potential tests going on that may affect your ability to actually get out there. But this is the plan that we would have media come out and hopefully be able to see this, and also follow that with essentially a very much like an L-30 news conference. So the drop test would have been done, and the team can talk about their work preparation so far and what's coming up next. So that's late August, and the one other asterisk I would put there is, again, due to weather or potential other operations, this date could ultimately slide or move a day or two, but it is definitely late August. Finally, leading up to the big day itself, starting on September 22nd, which is a Friday, by the way. September 24th is the sample return day itself. That's a Sunday. There will be you will be able to get access to the site and deal with your badging and things like that. If you want to get that out of the way and come in and scope out the area, there will be a chance to do remote interviews. And if you are there, there will also be sort of photo opportunities and chance to do some interviews in person. Then on the 24th itself, we will have a live NASA TV live broadcast. That begins at 8 a.m. Mountain Time and will continue until the capsule is recovered and from the range and brought back to a hangar and moved into the clean room that is being constructed there. So likely several hours of broadcast coverage. What we are doing, again, this is not a NASA facility where we have a newsroom and all of that like at Kennedy or something. So we are putting up a media tent where you can obviously view the broadcast as it's happening, but also have a chance to, from there, see the helicopters that are part of the recovery operation, where they would take off from, and you would see them come back as well. Again, setting expectations to be clear from everyone on the mission team. This is a small capsule. It's not something that you're going to be able to see streak across the sky, and we will not, other than the actual recovery team out there, no one would be able to be out close enough to the range to see the capsule and the parachute and all of that. It'll be captured by the broadcast, but not, by any of the guests or others in attendance there. And then a final note from me, in the Littleton campus for Lockheed Martin in Colorado, they will be doing some activities as well, a media day as well as a social media event. The media day on the 24th, the social media event the 23rd and 24th. So just want to flag those on behalf of Lockheed and say that they'll be putting out more information about those events too. With that, I will go ahead and pass off to Scott Dixon at Dugway Proving Ground.
Thank you, Patrick. Like Patrick said, my name's Scott Dixon. I work with Dugway Proving Ground in the Public Affairs Department. Just kind of a quick background on the installation. We were founded shortly after the Pearl Harbor attacks in World War II. So we've been in operation for 81 years now. We are the premier test and training facility. Anything that the Army buys, you want to prove that it works, hence the name Proving Ground. We are about square mileage the size of the state of Rhode Island, which makes us a perfect place to land a piece of space equipment. Also, the fact that we are pretty far away from most populated areas, it makes it safer to do these kind of things in our backyard here. So, as you might guess, it's an Army base, so access is restricted. If you don't have your name on the list and you don't have your proper badging documentation, you're not going to be allowed on base. That being said, once you get past the base, there is the town of Dugway, which is where our residents and some of our employees work, where they live, I'm sorry. They all work out here at Dugway. Past that town is where you start to get into the more restricted areas. There'll be facilities that even your pass won't get you access to, and even more locations that we won't want pictures or videos being taken. We will make sure that, we are very clear about where you can shoot and what you can shoot. Media guests all have to be accompanied. We're probably going to have you guys in groups. We don't know the exact size of those groups yet, but you'll have somebody, either a representative from NASA, the Army, or the Air Force, who will accompany you at all times and just make sure that you're aware of what you're allowed to shoot and what you're not. Where the clean rooms are, that's part of the Utah Test and Training Range, and they are, those facilities are a small area on Dugway, and they're a tenant there. So that's separate from Dugway proper. So the airfield where everybody will be, where most of the media will be located, that is Dugway property. The Avery area, as we call it, where the clean rooms are, that is Utah Test and Training Range property. And our rules differ slightly. So depending on which location you're at, you might have different rules. But again, we'll try to be as clear with those as possible. Like I mentioned, we're really far out here. That's kind of a big benefit to us for testing and stuff like that. But it's also a little bit of a challenge for us because there aren't many facilities available here. We have a diner. It's not going to be able to accommodate a large group unless we kind of prepare them in advance. So when you come out here, just know that there's not a McDonald's around the corner. We do have a commissary, which is a kind of a grocery store that is open to any visitors. So you're more than welcome to grab some groceries there if you need to. But options are limited. It's not just like a normal town. But there is a gas station at the entrance as well. So if you get out here and you realize you're running low, you can fill up there. We do have a hotel on base. However, it's small, rooms are limited, and it fills up very quickly just due to other tests and other training events that are going on. The next closest town is about 45 minutes away, a town called Tooele. It does not sound the way it's spelled, but that's how you pronounce it. They also have a limited number of hotels there, though, so that will likely also fill up very quickly. And then Salt Lake City is your next best bet, about 80 miles away. So just being aware of all of that. The other big thing that we like to get across in these kind of situations is the most dangerous thing that we do at Dugway is driving. And that's getting to and from work and driving out on post. I myself actually hit a deer this morning on my way in. Everybody's okay. The deer got up and ran away, so I assume it's still alive. But it's a reality of where we are. It's a 2-lane highway to get out here, and there are cows and deer and other wildlife that are out there. So just be aware that you need to be extra careful when you are arriving and going home from the facility. With that, that's all I have to say. So I'm going to toss it over to Shaneequa with the Johnson Space Center.
Hi, everyone. Like stated, I'm Shaneequa Vereen, the lead public affairs officer here at Johnson Space Center for everything OSIRIS-REx. I will be going over everything that's happening at Johnson Space Center here in Houston, Texas. So first up for us is on Monday, July 24th, NASA will host a media day at the agency's new OSIRIS-REx sample curation lab. Again, that is Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. The curation team will showcase the laboratories and you'll be able to speak to lead scientists who will be available for interview. U.S. media interested in attending must apply by 5 p.m. Central Time, that's 4 p.m. Eastern, on Friday, July 7th. And international media must apply by 5 p.m. Central Time, 4 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday, June 30th. That's this Friday, just the first heads up, June 30th, this Friday. All international media interested in joining that Curation Lab Media Day will need to have in their details. You can RSVP by calling the JSC newsroom or emailing us at jsccomu@mail.nasa.gov. That link and email address is going to be listed in that advisory. Again, the difference in due date is due to it taking 2 to 3 weeks to process foreign nationals at the Johnson Space Center. As mentioned previously, once the sample hits the ground, the capsule is going to be retrieved by helicopter and taken to UTTR pop-up clean room for a preliminary checkout. The next day, on September 25th, the capsule and its contents are flown to NASA's Johnson Space Center, where, again, the new clean room has been built for the long-term study of the sample. There is a process in place, however, to open the sample. Once at JSC, it's still not technically ours. Lockheed Martin will be opening the lid that was built by them, and then it will be officially turned over to Johnson Space Center. After the lid is taken off, the next day, and this is if all things go well, right, we have a process, and it should take about 4 to 5 days to fully open the sample. After the lid is taken off the next day, the base plate will be taken off and removed. And then the curation team will begin to open the canister on the following day. Again, pending no issues, 4 to 5 days to fully open the canister and start seeing that sample revealed. We have built in some buffer time, and we are looking at Tuesday, October 11th, to host a NASA social for media influencers, as well news conference and media day for regular news and media outlets. Again, October 11th will be the day that the sample is revealed at NASA's Johnson Space Center. The news conference will be in person at the Teague Auditorium, but will also be broadcast live on NASA TV. We are looking at beginning the broadcast and the event at 10 a.m. Central Time. We're looking at an hour and a half for the full event. Media will be able to hear from NASA leadership, program management, legislative members, and the curation team. After the sample is revealed and we hear from those previously mentioned, we will have a Q&A. Again, that will be with the same folks that I mentioned, NASA Leadership, Program Management, the curation team, and probably a specialist for a sample analysis from Goddard Space Center. Again, for this event, U.S. media interested in attending must apply by 5 p.m. Central Time on October 6th, and international media must apply by 5 p.m. Central Time on September 29th. Again, we're going to go into that same email address. That's jsc.comu@mail.nasa.gov. That is going to be linked in that media advisory that was sent out on Friday. Following the event on the 11th, we will have some live shop opportunities for OSIRIS-REx mission personnel. And so we'll be offering up time with curation team members as well as program management at Johnson Space Center. And with that, I'm going to pass it back over to Erin Morton to begin our Q&A portion.
Thank you, Shaneequa. And as a reminder, all of the links to the various RSVP forms can be found on the media advisory for today's call, and they will also be available on the individual media advisories as they come out. There is a registration link for any event out at the Utah Test and Training Range. Johnson has their own link as well. So we will now open the line for questions. Again, if you're a member of the media on the telecom line, please press *1 to be put in the queue. Operator, let's begin.
Thank you. Our first question comes from Gina Sinceri with ABC Network News. Your line is open.
Thank you. Can you narrow down the window for when OSIRIS-REx will return on that date?
I can take that one. This is Erin Morton of NASA headquarters. The spacecraft will jettison the sample capsule. The sample capsule is expected to arrive on the ground at 8:55 in the morning. That would be Utah time. There is some plus or minus, but you're not looking at anything more than, I would say, an hour either way.
Thank you. Can I have a second question?
Yes, please.
You've had other missions come back, Genesis and Stardust. What have you learned from those missions that will help this mission succeed?
This is Erin again. I'll take that. That is actually something that would be happy to direct you to a member of the mission team to answer. If you'd like, we can get your information and respond to that later. Right now, we're looking more at questions for the logistics for covering the mission. We're all comms colleagues, so we're that's our area of expertise.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Leonard David with Scientific American. Your line is open.
Thanks very much. Maybe just a broad question about JSC and the new clean rooms. I mean, it's historic with their position on handling the Apollo samples. But is there kind of a general view of what's taken place there with a new kind of operation at JSC? What's different?
Hey, hi, Leonard. This is Shaneequa from Johnson.
Yeah.
So the new curation facility is in the same-ish building. It's still 31, but the lunar curation samples are in a vault that's kind of below the building next door, attached to where the OSIRIS-REx sample curation lab has been created. The difference between the two labs is A, spacing, and then B, what's needed. So it's multiple layered labs. On one side, it's what we would call a dirty lab. You can go in and you don't have to be full gown and bunny suit and all that stuff. The curation lab, specifically where the glove boxes and sample will be held, you have to go through a process of cleaning your equipment and gowning up, and no hair can be shown and that sort of thing to enter into that lab. We do have a similar situation for the lunar lab, but the spaces are just different. This was specifically built to house the OSIRIS-REx sample. And as you know, Ares, or the Astral Materials Division at JSC, houses the most extensive collection of extraterrestrial materials in the U.S., in the world, actually. So they all have their own special facility requirements and all have their own space. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thanks. And maybe just a quick one for Scott Dixon. In the again, a broad question is really when you've had experiences already, as the previous question asked about the other capsules that have come in, anything logistically that you're doing differently than you have done in the past with those first sample returns?
Leonard, yeah, thank you for the question. That is, as far as the logistics of how the sample is getting returned and what processes are going through that, we are leaving that up to the NASA folks. So that is really a question for them.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Hey, Leonard, this is Patrick Lynch at Goddard. I can chime in on the media side.
Great.
It's funny, in terms of, I don't know if you were there to cover the previous missions or not. I was not, but we've certainly checked in with our colleagues at JPL and elsewhere. Of course, they were, in media years, a long time ago, and the way that things cover, or the way that people cover that, and they have a pretty large in-person media contingent there, and quite honestly, one of the reasons we wanted to do a call like this and start the registration process early was to really get a sense for, your all's needs in the media, and interest in coming out, how many people are going to be there in person versus how many want to be able to cover it remotely, because you could do that, but so I think we will, again, we'll be doing the live broadcast like any sort of NASA launch or space flight operations. Those feeds will be available to anyone, the media feed, a clean feed, et cetera. We'll have the ability for you all to come in person. Like I said, there's not to see the actual reentry with your naked eye, because that's not going to happen, but to be there. It's an incredible landscape, to see this historic event unfold and to be able to talk with the team, the recovery operations team included, right after they go out and do this. So we've tried to make it, accessible for people to come and cover it in person, to the extent possible. And so, yeah, we're looking forward to it and looking forward to hopefully having a good group of you all out there.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Christopher Kokinos with Astronomy Magazine. Your line is open.
Great. Thank you so much for doing this. And also, I'm based in Logan, Utah now, so if anybody needs restaurant recommendations for Salt Lake, I can help. I have just two or three quick questions. On September 24th, you've got that 2-hour window. It looks like in the morning. At what time will the media need to or be able to arrive by that morning?
Yes, so that's we have been talking about that. This is Patrick Lynch at Goddard. We were thinking, I believe, something around like a 5:30 arrival.
Okay.
So a little bit like a launch where you want to make sure everyone gets in and settled and all of that. The media tent that I talked about where it'd be set up is essentially on the tarmac at a place called Michael Army Airfield. It's where, again, the helicopters of the recovery operation will be taking off from to go to their kind of staging location. And I believe they're taking off. This timeline could change once they do the rehearsal and all that, but they should be taking off around 7 a.m. So I think certainly we'd like everyone to, it's not far. I mean, it's right there on the other side of the tarmac. So it would be good to get everyone in place, by then.
Right. And when the helicopters return, I'm sorry, just a couple more quick questions. When the helicopters return, they'll go first to the clean room facilities, right? So we won't actually see the helicopter that has the capsule when it comes back from the recovery. Is that correct?
So you will see it because it's going to the Avery location that Scott mentioned is, as the crow flies, no more than a 3/4 of a mile away.
Okay.
So you will be able to see it. And what we're looking into right now is sort of like a media pool location over by that hangar. So that ideally, we would be able to, there'd be plenty of time after, the recovery operations will take several hours. So that certainly photographers and such want to be able to get over there. Again, still working all this out. It's not our facility and making sure that it's a safe location, but ideally we would be able to have sort of a pool or media pen spot there that has an angle of the recovery helicopter bringing the capsule back. It's going to be in like a long line, hanging down from the bottom of the helicopter.
Nice. Okay, great. And then my last question. Sorry to Don, but my last question would be: so when it flies to Houston, are you guys flying it? You all flying it directly from Dugway, or is it getting transferred to Hill Air Force Base and then flying to Houston? And is there any media availability to see any part of that process? And thank you very much.
Erin, do you want me to jump in on that?
Yeah, Patrick.
Sure. Yeah, so it is flying directly from Dugway. We definitely plan to have a NASA photographer on board. I'm not sure we put the question, quite honestly, to anyone on the mission about potential media access there. But I believe if you were interested in sticking around to see the plane take off, that might be feasible. But it also might just be a plane taking off. So again, like I said before, one of the reasons we wanted to have this call is just to start to get a sense from you all what types of the things you might be interested in covering, given the location and the planning we'd have to do to help facilitate that. So
cool. All right. Really appreciate it. Thank you all very much.
And this is Erin Morton again. I just wanted to clarify what I'd said earlier about the that window for the time to come down. It is 8:55, and the plus or minus time right now, they're looking at about 3 minutes.
Oh, okay.
And this is Scott Dixon with Dugway Proving Ground. On the arrival time for the media, like Patrick said, we're looking at about 5:30. That's the morning of the return. But if anybody attends the media event on the 22nd, which is 2 days beforehand, you can get your badging done at that point, and that will make the morning of the return quicker for you. Just because you won't have to be obtaining your badge. You'll already have one. You can just show it to the guards and come on by. But that's all I had to say.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Alexandria Whitty with Nature Magazine. Your line is open.
Yeah, hi, thanks. I guess this is for Erin. If you could just step us through a little bit more of the time frame for what happens after that morning. I'm just thinking, okay, so arrival at 5:30 in the morning, this capsule return at 8:55. What's kind of the time frame for, the helicopters to come back, and like when is the sort of end point for everything media can see on that day?
Hey, Alex, I'm actually going to pass that to Patrick at Goddard since they're creating the program that day.
Sure. So like Erin was saying about the reentry and landing time is extremely well known compared to the rest. The recovery operations we expect to take several hours, and like I mentioned, the broadcast we expect to be ultimately probably around 4 hours. And so again, this is very rough just for your sort of planning purposes. But so imagine the capsule making it into the clean room somewhere 3 or 4 hours after reentry and landing. And then, actually, thank you for asking this because I point this out. We do then plan to have a sort of post-event media briefing. Obviously, we need to give a little bit of time for the recovery team to get the capsule into the clean room, and for at least, one or two of the key people there to come join a post, recovery media briefing that we would do that Sunday afternoon. And I think it's just we're going to have to get through the rehearsal in August and things like that before we actually establish that time. But that would sort of be the wrap on the day. And obviously, you'd have access there to stay in the media tent. And as Scott I think mentions, we're looking into making sure that there are food options and things like that if we're going to be there for a long day. But the wrap would be that post-event media briefing there on site.
Okay, and there'll be power supply in the media tent and stuff like that?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Patrick.
Yep.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Miles Doran with CBS News. Your line is open.
Hi, thanks for doing this. Two quick questions. First, the drop test in August. Will NASA be shooting B-roll of that event as well in case we aren't able to go out there for that? And my second question is back to the media tent on the tarmac at Dugway. How is cell phone service and internet access out there? Will you all be providing internet access? Just wondering logistically if there's enough bandwidth out there to support live TV broadcast.
Yes. So this is Patrick. I'll jump in on that. Well, I'm going to go back to the first one because I forgot it suddenly. So on the second question, Scott can probably answer this better. AT&T provides okay service out there. We are, for our own purposes, as well as for the media and guests, looking to set up a Starlink availability for the Wi-Fi access. You mentioned
I'll jump in on that. Yeah, sorry, Patrick. Just real quick, it is AT&T is the only service that actually works beyond the town of Dugway. We're working on getting that fixed, but it's not going to be fixed by the time you all are out here. So.
And the first part of your question was B-roll. Yes, we will be shooting B-roll of the drop test. That's the plan.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Christopher Conover with Arizona Public Media. Your line is open.
Thank you all. Actually, a lot of my questions answered. Just a quick one. Is there any media availability for the arrival in Houston and the opening of the capsules, or is that just going to be all NASA providing B-roll?
Hey, I can answer that a little bit for you. This is Shaneequa. Media will get B-roll. We'll be providing B-roll for media for both. We'll have a Johnson videographer at the tarmac ready for the capsule. They built out a truck for a clean room to transfer from Ellington Field over to Johnson Space Center. We'll have someone following along the entire ride. And then on actual opening day, actually that week leading up to the opening, we'll have videographers around. We won't allow media in on the day of actual opening, but we can provide that to you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Robert Perlman with Collect Space. Your line is open.
Hi, thank you. Another question about Houston, specifically about the October 11th event, just to set expectations. When it says that the samples are going to be revealed, will that just be through video and photography in Teague, or are you expecting to actually bring samples over to the auditorium? And if not, is there an opportunity afterwards will there be an opportunity for the press to enter the clean room, get gowned up and enter the clean room to take photographs of the samples themselves?
Hey, Robert, so first part of your question, we won't be bringing the sample to the clean room. At the time that the reveal happens, the team will still be actually like analyzing and getting data that they need for everything we're doing for the future sample, right? However, we do have 3 cameras set up, 1 in the actual glove box and 2 in the curation lab room. We do plan on having media over there. We're still going through, after the event, we do have plans to take media over to the curation lab. We are still going through logistics on whether gowning up and being able to get a closer view, or if you'd be on that other, in the lab where it has the big window and you can go into the dirty room. There is some restrictions as far as numbers and people that are allowed in the room at a time. So we're still working through those logistics a little bit. But I suspect you will be minimum allowed into the dirty room and get a closer look from that huge window looking into the glove box. And again, NASA will also be providing the B-roll from the camera feeds and stuff that we'll have inside the curation room.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Once again, to ask a question, please press star 1. Our next question comes from Gina Sinceri, ABC Network News.
Thank you. For my fellow television colleagues, 5:30 getting in is 7:30 Eastern time, and we would be well into Good Morning America by then. Could you move that time up considerably? I mean, an hour. I mean, if we could be on site by 6 a.m. Eastern, which I know makes it horribly early for you there, but this will be big news on a Sunday morning, and our morning shows, we would not be able to cover for our morning shows with a 5:30 a.m. arrival.
Hey, this is Patrick. Yes, Gina, we can work with you on that, I'm sure. I mean, Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think for the most part, this will be sort of an all hands on deck. And so I'm sure we'll have people there earlier than that. Scott, I would ask that to you. Do you see any reason why that would be an issue?
I don't believe that would be an issue. We would need to, I think if we get an idea of how many people would like to be here that early, we can work that out.
Yeah. So yeah, Gina, let's we can work out those logistics as we get closer, but I don't think that should be an issue.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Jeff Faust with Space News. Your line is open.
Thanks for doing this call. 2 quick questions. One, is there any sort of limits, capacity limits on how many media you'll be able to accommodate either for the August rehearsal or the actual landing itself in September? And then, apologies if I missed it earlier, how far away is this media tent going to be from the drop zone? Thanks.
So this is Patrick. We have not established a limit. I think, again, we were opening this up, and we are curious ourselves to see the number of registrations that come in. I mean, I think put a disclaimer in there that says there may be a limitation. That's if we get, I think, super, overrun. But I think if it's anywhere, around what we expect, I think we'll be able to handle and shouldn't actually be turning anyone away just based on numbers, I hope. Second question, the landing zone, it's, don't hold me to this. I want to say it's a good, the landing ellipse is quite large in square mileage, but at the center of it is a good 20 to 25 miles away from the airfield where the helicopters will be taking off and then roughly returning to.
Thank you.
At this time, I am showing no questions.
All right. Well, this is Erin Morton again. This concludes today's media telecon. Thank you for everyone who dialed in today. And I'd also like to thank the panelists and our operator, Julie, for their time. If you joined this telecon late, you can listen to the entire recording by dialing 1-800-944-1822. Again, that number is 1-800-944-1822. And if you have any follow-up logistics questions, please contact any one of us on the panel, and we will be happy to get you the information you need. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your participation. Participants, you may disconnect at this time.